just a very basic summary of who Brian Callahan is. Got a very fantastic NFL pedigree. Bulk of his experience is under the Shanahan-McVay tree. So that's the kind of guy you're getting from a scheme standpoint, from a NFL heritage standpoint. He's had stints with Gary Kubiak, who's a Shanahan disciple. In Denver, he was there during the Peyton Broncos years, primarily when they went to a couple of Super Bowls. Zach Taylor, of course, with the Bengals, where he was just a part of the Joe Burrow era in Cincinnati, and working with Zach Taylor, who himself is a McVay disciple. And then he's also worked in the past with John Gruden in Las Vegas during the early Derek Carr years, and then Jim Caldwell in Detroit for some of the earlier parts of the Matt Stafford era. So some big boy quarterback names on that list. And he's finishing up this past year was his 15th year in the NFL. He's just 39 years old. So very young guy that you're bringing in here. He's primarily worked with quarterbacks, obviously Stafford and Carr and Burrow and Peyton Manning and Tim Tebow you can throw in there. He's drawn rave reviews from those guys, Manning and Stafford and Burrow. The biggest question with him, obviously, and we talked about this when he was a candidate for the team, he's never called plays. Now, that does not mean that he can't call plays. And I've seen some folks already, Titans fans with those two-tone colored glasses on, already defending. Well, just because he didn't call plays doesn't mean he can't. That's true. That's fair. There are very violent examples of this going very good and very wrong in the past. Like some examples of things, like recent examples of guys that had never called plays, but ended up being really very good play callers. Zach Taylor had never called plays until he was out from underneath Sean McVay in Los Angeles and went to the Bengals, and they've obviously had a lot of success. And then Mike McDaniel, hired away from San Francisco last year, goes to Miami, had never called plays because he was underneath Kyle Shanahan. And now you see what he's doing. Easily, in my opinion, the most innovative play caller and designer in the league right now. Who knew, right? You got to let him try to figure that out. He's also, Brian Callahan, got a seal of approval from Peyton Manning, which is in the NFL. I mean, that's royalty. That's getting literally the rings, the King's ring stamped onto your resume. There's also very good and very bad examples of this in the past. The name that comes to everybody's mind when you say, well, Peyton likes him, is Adam Gase, because Adam Gase was a guy that Peyton really shilled for and got him 2 head coaching jobs, even though he stunk at his job and players notoriously didn't like him. So that, there's that. But that was, I think that's the most popular one, which is fair. What's not popularly known, and I don't really know why, another guy that Peyton Manning had folks in the know, I've read them say pretty explicitly, it was Peyton who ultimately got him this job, was Shane Steichen with the Colts last year. Peyton's influence played a big part in him getting that role. And you saw what Shane Steichen has been in Indianapolis this past year. So again, that take it with a grain of salt, but it's not good or bad. It's just something that I find is interesting about Brian Callahan. There's another thing that I said in our past episodes, JT, that I was thinking about in prepping for today's show. And I wanted to bring it up. I meant to go just clip what I said so that we could revisit it and then I could give my thoughts on it. But I went and I found the notes that I'd written on it. So here's what I said. It was our episode with James Foster, I think early last week when we were talking through these candidates. And I was talking about what I'm interested in the coaching search, because it was essentially an open-ended question that I asked that I now want to try to answer. Okay, so what I said was I am much, much more interested in the type of coach, the type that the Titans hire, than who the actual guy is. Why? Because every year we hear about good hires and bad hires, and guys who are supposed to be a home run turn out to be a bum. And the popularly mocked guys like Dan Campbell sometimes turn out to be Dan Campbell. Fit within the existing team structure, culture and relationship building skills and other intangibles matter so much that I find trying to decide if a guy will be good or not on day one of their tenure to largely be a waste of time. It certainly gets clicks, but it's just not my thing. I want to see what direction team leadership wants to go based on the kind of coach that they hire. I want to speak to the guy who gets the job, get a feel for who he is as a man and a leader. I want to evaluate the first couple decisions and coaching staff hires that he makes in his first offseason. That's what I think people should really be focused on with a new coach coming to town. The specific name and their resume matters less than I think people tend to think. So what type of coach did the Titans get in Brian Callahan? Obviously, some of those later questions that I asked there, I can't answer yet. We have not had a chance to talk to him. I've not had a chance to gauge who he is as a leader, what kind of man he is. We've not seen any of the offseason decision making skills that he has, the things that he decides to do for and with this team. So those are TBD. But now that we know who the guy is, and to my point more specifically, the type of coach that he is, I think we can answer some of these questions. So what type of coach do the Titans have in Brian Callahan? I jotted down some thoughts on him based on what we've heard and what we have seen on his resume from his past experience as a coach. He's offensively minded, obviously, analytically savvy, young and forward thinking, invaluable to the plan and the process week to week, according to his coworkers, according to his fellow coaches, invaluable as a teacher, according to his players, an excellent communicator, which is obviously very important, and something that the Titans, in their rebound from the John Robinson, Mike Vrabel era, where communication was rocky at best, it seems, they're looking for one of those guys, an excellent communicator, somebody with an incredibly deep Rolodex of NFL contacts to build out his staff, which I am so excited to see the guys that he gets on the staff because of how deep his contact list goes. All of that being said, I think it's kind of the best case scenario for the Titans. If I were to give you a list of qualifications, a list of traits in a potential head coaching hire, most of these things would be on that list verbatim for me. And so I think for the future of the franchise, that's huge. And in terms of where in general the Titans are headed, it feels like the modern era. It feels like the future, does it not?